Welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to share how our society actually creates and keeps codependency alive, and therefore it makes it very difficult for all of us to have a relationship with ourselves and a relationship with others. And ultimately, that's at the heart of codependency. A person who is codependent struggles in their relationship within themselves and with others, and it's primarily because it's a shame-based illness or shame-based disease. And as I've shown in previous videos, it's my belief that all of this stems from what Pia Mellody calls less than nurturing and or abusive parenting. And I personally, this is my belief, I believe all of that means it's abusive parenting. And I believe that because it is a result of the parenting we experience that we therefore have a damaged relationship with ourselves, and therefore we can't forge healthy, connected relationships with others. That's the hallmark of codependence. And again, to become codependent, we would have had to experience abusive parenting. Now, I'm going to real quick go through, because a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't go through abusive parenting. Well, what people think of abusive, and this is how society creates it. Our society has sent the message that only if you've experienced the typical stuff we all think of, then no, your childhood was fine. You didn't go, everything was great. You shouldn't even look at your childhood for the answer. It's not there. It's somewhere else. It's them. Usually society says the problem is them. They're the narcissist. They're the whatever. You're okay. You're not the problem. Now, I would agree. None of us are the problem. All of us are perfectly imperfect. All of us are human. But we are all also responsible, and this is a way that society lets us off the hook and doesn't place responsibility on ourselves, and that's a hallmark of codependence. Just like our parents placed responsibility for their feelings on us to carry their shame, society does the exact same thing in how they handle all of this. So 5 simple questions, because the first step for you to see how reality or see how society is creating your codependence, and everyone on this planet to be codependent and to have suffered abusive parenting, we have to get into reality. And so I have 5 questions which prove we've all suffered trauma, and I know people don't like the word abuse, and that's okay, I get it. Call it whatever you want. Like, I don't get hung up on the words. Because I've worked through codependence, I don't get the assault. Those who, by hearing that word, but those who are codependent, that word will assault them. They're too early in the journey to have internal boundaries. They're still too affected by things like that. They can't handle that level of honesty and truth. And that sounds very condescending and demeaning, and that's not my intent. But it's just truth. That's what happens when you're codependent. If you hear a word like abuse or trauma, boom, you're triggered. All right? And think of that. In this culture, everyone's triggered. That's codependence. That's trauma. And they're too early in the recovery process. They don't have the knowledge, skills, and tools to navigate their pain and all the healing they need to go through. And so, just like our parents did, they're making the world responsible for their inability to navigate their shame and their pain. That's codependence. All of these groups that are trying to control speech and political correctness, all of that is shame-based codependency and trauma that they suffered in childhood that they've never dealt with, that was placed into them by their perfectly imperfect parents, that society is now condoning and saying, you need to fix this for me. It's your responsibility. This is what my parents taught me, that it was my job to take care of their pain. So now I'm just doing what I was taught. I'm going to get society to take care of my pain. All right? And here are the 5 questions which prove all of that. The first one is this. When we felt angry, sad, or scared at anything our parents did or said as a child, in that moment, could we talk to them? It's been my experience, none of us could. Our parents banished us to a room or many other ways. They were in control. They were the boss. There was no ability to have discussion. All right? Number 2, do you have any secrets from your parents? Now, if we have secrets from our parents, that means we wanted to keep the peace. That also means we felt it was our job and our responsibility to keep the peace in the family. It also means it was our job to keep our parent happy. Because our parents, this is now you're seeing how we are the marginalized groups that are trying to control speech. They had to keep the peace in the family. They had to make sure mom and dad, because if we ever did anything wrong, oh, mom, I can't talk about that. Can't let them know I did this. Even if you're 60 years old, oh my God, I can't let them know that I went out with Joe next door, the next door neighbor, because I disturbed the peace. Mom and dad couldn't navigate those feelings, and it's my job to make sure mom and dad don't get upset. Because what happens when mom and dad get upset? Get in your room. That's why, number one, I couldn't have a discussion with them. So I'm keeping the peace. I'm keeping the secrets. Now, this also extends to the dirt. We know of the reported numbers, 1 out of 3 people are abused sexually. How many people are keeping that secret? I mean, those types of things. But I'm not even touching the deep stuff that we know, because people are so distorted in their reality. They think only that is. No. If your parents don't know your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs and actions, even now as you're an adult, and I can't let them know that. Why? Because they'd reject you, they'd judge you, they'd blame you. That's abuse. Your parent isn't accepting you for who you are. That's shame. You as a person are bad. You don't fit mom and dad's model of what the world is. Our society doesn't want to talk about that truth. Instead, they say, don't think about childhood. It's not back there. Now, me as a 30-year-old adult, I get to control what you say. That's how society does it. Society keeps the secret for our family and our parents. Number 3, right now, can you sit and have a conversation with your parents, an open and honest, loving conversation about their parenting style and their perfect imperfections? Most people would never even dream of the concept of having any type of conversation with their parents about the type of parenting they experience. Number 4, do you excuse, minimize, justify your parents' perfectly imperfect parenting style? Do you condone that you see this all the time? People, usually successful people, talking about how they were beat to death as a kid, and it kept me straight. They're minimizing abuse. It is not okay to hit a child. And I know most of you listening, most people that listening to me are in my age group or older, and we were all hit. And we're all just, oh no, it taught me a lesson, taught me how to mind my manners. All of those things. I'm going to get into that in a minute. Number 5, have you ever in your life said, I should have or I could have? Those are 2 signs of, if you say should or could, that means you're filled with shame, because what that means is you only have value and worth if you should or could do those things. The inability to do that means you have no worth. Therefore, you got sent the message, you are shame. You are not worthy unless you should or could. All right? It also means you can't stay in reality. And what is all of this about? Society is not in reality of the effect. We've known scientifically, and there's a bad connotation now because science has been so misused in the last couple of years as to what it's been manipulated to push a false agenda. And that's proof of childhood. Like, we can't tell the truth. It is just not okay to tell the truth in our society. We can't admit it. This is what we learned. And so as we see these people, misusing science to push a benefit, well, that's all stuff they learned in childhood. That's shame. That's all it is. And so that's what's happening here. Society won't let us talk about the truth, we've known forever that the most impactful thing in our whole life that determines the outcome of our life is our parenting that we experience, the environment we're raised in. Our genes get activated by the life experiences we have. But yet we just talk about genes. Oh, it's your genes. Just your genes did that to you. No. Genes don't come activated. They need an environment to turn them on. How you were raised is what determines whether that gene activates. It's the parenting that creates who you are, and our society doesn't want to talk about that. All right? Now, why? Because in our society, we're not allowed to talk about shame. We're not allowed to express our imperfections. It is not okay to be imperfect. Like, think of America. We are America the Great. We have to always be great, have to always be positive, never be negative. Well, what is that? That's called falsely empowered codependence. Because we're not in truth, we're not in reality. And so as a society, and this goes beyond America, this is all countries. Think of, gosh, go to the Middle Eastern countries. Shame, my God, you just can't even talk about any imperfections. And certain countries, it's so much worse than it is here in America. And so what that leads to is the next thing, carried shame. Generationally, we've been passing down all of this pain, all of this unhealed pain from generation to generation because we refuse to talk about what causes all of this. We refuse to educate people that we become the parenting we experience. That is the most significant impact in our life. And here's the perfect proof of it. Watch documentaries on, serial offenders, whichever offense they created, all right, or terrorists or whatever. They tell this story of a horrific childhood. They completely minimize it. And then they're like, gosh, yeah, they talk to the neighbors. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure why they blew up that building. Makes no sense to me, as they then tell how mom and dad threw plates at each other, kids were abandoned outside. Like, every single one of those stories of people that have created atrocities, their childhoods were horrific. And the documentary all talks about, God, I just don't, we still haven't figured out scientifically what's happening. I don't know. Like, sorry, I just said flabbergasted at the denial, the lack of reality in our society. Everything goes back to childhood. Everything goes back to parenting. And so, why do people not want to talk about it? What happens? What are you feeling right now as I talk about it? Massive shame, denial, pushback, anger. Why? Don't. Because what does society say? Never, ever confront the Father. Like, that's a spiritual text, right? The Father is always right. Honor your mother and father. Well, let me ask you, what is the single most important tenet of any spiritual basis? Truth, right? Well, do you see how people and society have distorted the truth? They have taken a spiritual tenet of honor the father, honor the mother and father, and they have completely distorted it to say that means we lie, we keep the secrets. We keep the secrets in the family. We don't share the shame. We don't talk about it. We don't tell the truth of what really happened in our childhood. We minimize it, we suppress it. Scientifically, we ignore what creates all of us. That's toxic. That I just find egregious. And media and everybody's complicit. Everybody. Teachers in my profession, you go to these great programs, they teach you these great cognitive skills or even some emotional skills, and they just glance over childhood. Some don't even mention it. I saw some new program where they're like, oh, you don't even have to talk about child. You don't even have to look at the past. I'm going, man, we just don't want to deal with truth. Now, I get it. I get why we don't want to admit our parents were imperfect, because do you see why? We're still stuck as the child. We're still stuck as in that loyalty bind. If we don't keep the peace by keeping the secret, we're going to lose our parents and lose our family. I get it. That's how scared we are. That's how, I'm going to use this word, and maybe it's not the right word, but I think it's appropriate. That's how tortured we are inside. That's how confusing our childhood was. Man, we have to get into reality on that. If you want any level of recovery, if you want to grow out of codependence, if you want to create a healthy, loving relationship with yourself so that you can create a relationship with others, until you accept that fact and that truth, you are completely detached from reality and spirituality. You're not even honoring your mother and father is about truth. It's being able to sit with your mother and father and go, wow, here are my memories about this. This was hurtful. And for them to go, I don't remember it that way. But if you're hurt, man, my heart breaks. But see, I have codependence recovery. I can hear my child's memory of an event and not lose containment and go, well, that's their reality. I don't remember it, but I see their hurt. And what matters is honoring their reality. But no, we're too stuck in our own childhood trauma and shamed from our parents dumping in. Our parents never listened to us, so there's no way I'm going to give it to my kid. Now, whether you're conscious enough and in reality enough to admit that to yourself, that's what you're doing. No way. I'm not going to give it to them. It wasn't given to me. I'll make them pay. That's the subconscious process that's going on in society. I'm the parent now. I don't have to put up with this. They owe me. My turn. I paid my dues. I know that's harsh. Truth is harsh. This made me laugh. But also, I felt honored. Someone recently said, and I kind of mixed it up, and when I got back in touch with them, I said, did I hear you right? And I realized I had put some words into it, but they agreed with it's like, no, that's truth. And they said to me, the first time I came across you, Kenny, and the things you talk about, I felt like I was being waterboarded with spinach. Yeah, I can see that. And they said, it was quite a mouthful to hear the things you were saying. But you know what? I knew it was truthful, and I knew it was good for me. And that's the truth about this. It's a mouthful. It is like being like, whoa, because our society doesn't want to talk about it or deal with it. It's overwhelming. But truth is love. That's the essence of spirituality. And that's where, whether you're spiritual or not, you could be agnostic and atheist. But if you're still protecting and keeping the secrets and out of reality that you have become your childhood, and that your pain from your childhood, you're still carrying it and still making excuses for your parents because you're honoring your mother and father, you don't have to be spiritual to be caught in that lie, that it's our job to never speak ill of the parents. Well, that's okay. So do you see how that's a lie? Like, that's a lie. How do you reconcile that with your spirituality to lie? It's incongruent. And if you're not spiritual, how do you reconcile that within yourself? That's a false self. That's an internal battle. That's shame and authenticity in a war. I've lived that war. It almost took my life. And so while this is uncomfortable to talk about, we need to get into reality of how our society keeps saying, you are responsible for how I think, feel, and behave. That is codependent, that is manipulative, that is destructive, and it's a lie. We are responsible. We may not be to blame, but we are responsible. And our society keeps promoting a lack of personal responsibility and they keep promoting codependence and asking everyone else out in the world to take responsibility for the way I think, feel, believe, and act. That's purgatory. That's hell. I will allow you that reality. You can place all the blame on me and deny till the cows come home that you experience trauma and that you're not codependent and all these different things. I will let you do that. And then I will ask one simple question. Look at your life. That belief system of yours has created the divorces, the health issues, all the dysfunction in your life. You are responsible for that. I will love you. I will love you enough to let you take responsibility for the life you have chosen. I will not carry that for you. That is not my job. That's not kind and loving. What is kind and loving is to talk truth and support you and say, yes, you can destroy yourself, and I will let you. And I will not judge you and say you're bad. I'll just go, obviously this works for you to make everyone responsible. Like, I get it. It's a lot of power. I used to live that way. Get there and play the martyr and victim and blame society and women or who else for all my troubles. And I'm not blaming my parents. I'm now the adult. It's my job to heal this. My parents are not to blame for my life. My parents are responsible for the perfect imperfections that they laid in me. Sure they are. But I'm responsible for healing them, not my parents. It's not my parents' job. And it's not society's job to heal your demons either. That's your job. And that's love. And man, I really felt like my father there, like I'm talking down to everybody. Well, I guess I need to back off all that and recognize that my passion for that is not to talk down to you. It's to recognize how costly this belief system is, that codependence and the direction our society is going. Here's why I get so fired up. It took my father's life. I saw my father kill himself with denial. Denial is the single greatest killer on this planet today. And our inability to accept that we've all been through childhood trauma and we're all codependent, and that all of these dynamics of victim blaming and making everyone else responsible are killing us. Now, my father didn't do that. My father took responsibility for his life, but my father couldn't acknowledge where he was wrong in his life. He couldn't completely see himself, and he refused to do it. And that's why I get so angry, because I see the world acting like my father. Now, that's my trauma, and that's why I'm saying you get to stay who you are. You don't have to change for me. Do you see? Like that's the recognition. Do you see how I pulled it back and turned it on myself? My energy about all of that is my codependence, my trauma. That when I get a little too elevated, a little, like I noticed anger came up, then I realized, wow, I'm asking you, the world, or whoever, the world doesn't watch me, but those small percentage of you that do, actually it's a big percentage, the people that watch me, it's not your job to heal that. That anger I had, that was anger for my father. I'm sad. And what's underneath anger? Sadness. I'm sad that my father's not here, that we could never reconcile how he couldn't see himself and therefore he couldn't show me himself. That breaks my heart. I'm sad about that. And so then when I start to get too elevated, I've all of a sudden it's called transference. I put my father's face on all of you. I'm asking you to face your codependence and face that your childhood's the start of everything. And really who I'm talking to is my father. See, I'm perfectly imperfect. I'm codependent too. I'm still broken and on the journey too. We all are. But do you see the gift of doing the journey? In that moment, I caught myself. I became aware that, wow, I'm asking you guys to do my job. But I could, because of the recovery from codependence and recovery from shame, I can just go, remember what society teaches us? We can't share our shame. We can't talk about it. Well, what is recovery? I just opened up. There it is. So big deal. I struggle with shame and low self-esteem and codependence. I'm just like everybody else. I'm perfectly imperfect. And at least to me, at least in my reality, going down this road is a much more enjoyable experience than making everyone else responsible. Do you see how I took responsibility for my life? Now listen to how I'm talking. Do you hear my voice? It's much quieter. It's not all high, it's not desperate and clingy and filled with fear. I'm centered. I was able to regather myself, get back in myself, contain myself, love myself, accept myself. That's why I teach this, because we can reclaim ourselves. From this place, I can have relationship with myself and with you. Earlier, as I started to get elevated, where most people live and they're unaware of it, relationship is impossible. I'm sure many people tuned me out when I started to get elevated like that, because it started to trigger their parents, all the stuff they've been through. Now, they may not be conscious that that's why they tuned out and that's why they left, but that's it. They saw I became their parents. Oh, I don't need this. I got enough of that as a kid. Now, they may have just gone, oh, I'm tired. Like, they may not have, depending on where they are. If they're early in the journey, they wouldn't connect that that's why they left. If they're further along in the journey, they'd click in. If they're far enough in the journey, they'd go, wait a minute, I got to keep watching. Something's going on here. Like, they'd be fascinated. They'd stick with it till the end. So we're all on that process. Okay? So, how do you get into reality? How does society get into reality? Well, there are many ways to do that. I'm going to share with you 3 of my favorite ways. I believe this is a great book. Beverly Engel, The Emotionally Abusive Relationship. It makes you think it's just about relationships, but she goes really deep into parenting dynamics. And so we're all distorted on what healthy parenting looks like. And that's why I think you should pick this book up, so you understand what healthy parenting looks like. Also, Pia Melody's Facing Codependence. Most people that teach codependence only teach one side of the dynamic. Therefore, if you've never read Pia, you are you're just vastly undereducated on what codependence is. To me, this is the best that's out there. She also really points out how we have an incredibly distorted view of parenting. If you'd like to learn more about that, my video just before this, what was it called? I don't, go to my codependence playlist. Shoot, I can't remember. But I read an excerpt from her. It was Codependent Parents, that's what it was called. I read an excerpt from here about our false view of parents. It really gives you an idea of what we need to grow in as a society about healthy parenting, all right? So this will really help you and get into reality on how destructive what we all think is healthy parenting is and how it's impacting us throughout our life. Plus, it'll help you recover from codependence. Also, my book. My book is a great book to help you really get in touch with how your childhood is still running your life, whether you recognize it or not, and you're reliving what I call the worst day cycle. It also gives you the basics to start turning it around. My whole platform, classes, everything I do gives you the process to heal your worst day cycle, which is part of the codependence recovery and all of this stuff. So there you go. If you think this will help somebody, if you want to be a part of changing society, if you're like, yeah, you know what? We need to get into reality on parenting. We need to get out of this victim blaming, making everyone else responsible, because it's a lie. We have to stop telling lies. We have to start advocating truth, even though it's difficult. Our parents were perfectly imperfect. We are all wounded. And as parents, we all wound our children. Truth number 1. Truth number 2, we're all codependent. Truth number 3, we are responsible for our life condition. It is not somebody else's job to change the way they think, feel, believe, and act. If we don't like it, it's our job to put a plan in place to deal with it. We need to stop the cancel culture and the controlling of others. If you believe in that and you want to make a change in society, please share this video. Please leave me your comments. And as always, Enjoy the journey.